Good morning, BookTube. This is Kelly with Books I'm Not Reading, and this is the Forest of Arden. And because it's so chilly outside this morning, I have my husband's jacket on, so you might not have recognized me because I'm in disguise. But Lukash has posted on Totally Pretentious this morning about As You Like It. Poor guy, he's sick, but he does a really good job of summarizing the play. And so I'm not going to duplicate that, but I will link to his video down below, and you definitely should check that out. And I really liked his description of it being kind of a romantic comedy. A couple things that I want to say is just to give you a glimpse into my married life. Is that so this morning we watched Lukash's video, and then all of a sudden Jason's like, oh, you have to see this. And so the next thing I know, I'm watching a Rush video of the song Limelight that includes some of the lines from one of the most famous speeches in here, maybe the most famous speech, that's all the world's a stage, and we are merely players, have our entrances and exits and that sort of thing, and it's in the part of that speech is in the song, so we had to watch that. And then Jason went off in search of a paper he wrote in college about As You Like It, and how this is like the basis for either romantic comedies or comedies. And so I actually did say, oh sure, I'd like to see the paper to see what movies you mention in the paper, and he couldn't find it, which is fine, because hopefully that means it's been recycled somewhere. But he mentioned LA Story with Steve Martin that has the line in it that I believe it's Celia says, wonderful, 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 and she goes on and keeps saying wonderful over and over again. And then I'm trying to think, and he mentioned Waking Ned Devine, which I said, okay, that is not a romantic comedy. It's a great comedy, but it's not a romantic comedy. So my experience of reading the play, though, I know initially I said I was really glad that there were all these footnotes. The Arden editions have so many footnotes in them, and I actually found that distracting. Somebody's up there. I actually found it distracting after a while. I really want to encourage those of you. I've named myself the unofficial Shaketube cheerleader, and I've had at least one, if not more, comments about, I haven't read Shakespeare since school, I wouldn't know where to start. And the point is that you start wherever you feel comfortable. You start anywhere, really. And if you have read Shakespeare before, I was actually surprised when I started reading it that I just kind of fell into it. I just fell into the language and that sort of thing. I will say, reading a play is not the same thing as experiencing it, because I think different actors and where I just read a sentence, the way that they are gesturing, their tone, depending on whether their voice goes up or down, that kind of thing, it can suddenly turn something that on the page is just kind of flat, humorous. And so I do miss that. I've got to find a way for all of us to be able to see Shakespeare. I don't know when I'll get to see another Shakespeare play again. But I suppose I've made that choice by living where I do. Anyway, so I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoy the comedies and the romance. I'm always a little amazed at how often Shakespeare uses, women dressing up as men, as disguise. Jason and I watched Twelfth Night this week, and I mean, sometimes people can pull it off better than others, as far as making you believe. But it is, yeah. Like, how many times do you do that, Shakespeare? I still enjoyed it. Another thing that I really got out of this was how often we do experience references to Shakespeare in our lives without being aware of it, without knowing it. And one of the things I found in here, there's part of a song. Here shall he see no enemy but winter and rough weather. And when I read that, I was like, because I made this little tiny cross-stitch pattern for one of my friends that I had purchased in England many, many moons ago. And that was the quote on it. And I thought, I wonder, like, what is that from? And I'm like, oh, now I know. It's from As You Like It, which is a perfect quote for a little garden scene. Drains. So the other thing I did was I watched this adaptation of As You Like It that was made by Kenneth Branagh. Again, I hope I'm saying his last name right. I tend to botch names a little bit. I do think he has done so much for Shakespeare in his lifetime. I really, really admire and appreciate that about it. And this has just, wow, an amazing cast. Kevin Kline plays the melancholy Jacques. Bryce Dallas Howard of Jurassic World fame plays Rosalind, and she is fantastic. And Alfred Molina's in it. Romola Garai, I believe, is in it. So anyway, there's a whole host of really, and some of these people weren't. Yeah, Romola Garai. Janet McTeer. Yeah, so quite a few people who maybe weren't famous when this came out. It is actually set in 19th century Japan, and that really gives it a different kind of feel and a different element, which I liked. However, since I've never seen As You Like It actually performed on the stage, part of me wanted to just see like just a straight adaptation. But it is beautiful, and Bryce Dallas Howard she's just so spectacular. So I watched it, and again, that's a different experience from reading it because, they edit things out or they rearrange some of the scenes, things like that. This one has, I will say, a extremely postmodern ending, which I really loved, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. But yeah, it was enjoyable. Not my favorite Shakespeare adaptation. I really want to encourage everyone, even if it's just you just pick up a movie somewhere that you haven't watched for a while, and just enjoy a little bit of Shakespeare in honor of Shaketube this month, and share your experience with the rest of us. I also want to remind everyone that Mark at Words Everywhere is doing these sonnets. He gave some of us like just kind of a way out as like one sonnet a day, and so I have been reading those. And I will say, unlike the play, the sonnets I find I've been reading all the footnotes, and there's actually a whole page for every sonnet in this edition, which is nice. And there's kind of a little summary at the beginning to sort of let you have a glimpse in. But I do really appreciate Mark's last video, and I'll try to link to that below, from last week. It was It was so helpful. It was just such a wonderful insight into these, and I really needed it because I have not read very many of these, and I think poetry is maybe for me the hardest art form that there is. But that doesn't mean just because something is challenging or hard that we shouldn't at least give it a go and try and embrace it. And this morning I read Sonnet 71, which I found incredibly beautiful and moving, and I'm so glad I read it. And I would never have if Mark hadn't suggested it. So I have so many videos I want to make, and I have so much housework to do. We really are in the forest over here in this corner of the yard. Oh, I got St. Francis behind me there. Thank you so much, BookTube. If you like this video, let me know. Please leave a comment if you read as you like it, or if you're just experimenting, if you're trying anything. You know, maybe you're not reading any of the plays that were chosen, but you're reading something else. I love to hear that stuff, so please leave a comment and let me know, and I hope to hear from you all soon. Talk to you later. Bye, BookTube.